Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Africa Thrive Live. My name is Naomi Kirungu, based here in Nairobi, Kenya, and one of your co-hosts today. We are so glad that you are able to join us and you took time off your evening. We believe today's session will be of great value to you. I'm really, really excited about today's session and about our guests and the conversation that we're going to have today. So get comfortable, grab your tea or your hot chocolate or your dinner for some of you. And if you have kids in the house and it's noisy, put on your earphones and get comfortable. It's going to be a great, great conversation we have today. Yeah. So welcome to all those joining us on LinkedIn. We see you, YouTube and Facebook. Keep coming, keep coming. Tell your friends or your colleagues the event has started. So can I say good evening? And to those watching us from Francophone Africa, bonsoir. And to those in Nigeria, I recently learned this, en leo. And to my brothers and sisters here in East Africa, Tanzania, hamjambo. Here in Kenya, would say niaje, wase. Yeah, so drop a line on the comment section, say hello, or teach me how to say hello in your language. I'll learn. Put it spell it so that I can be able to pronounce it. Yeah. Tell us what your business does. Tell us where you're tuned in from. Would love, love, love to hear from you. Yeah. So to have this conversation today, I'm not alone. I'm joined by my colleague, my sister friend, and co-host, Irene Okoye. So Irene is joining us. Irene, say hello to everybody.
Hello, sister friend. And for those in the South who are feeling a little left out, it's Sanbonani Dumelang. And we're so happy that you tuned in. You've set some time apart to join us. So it's always great to have you. Naomi, I'm super excited about tonight's session.
Yeah, me too, Irene. Yeah, and I'm also keen about learning people's languages. You said San. Teach me that. Sanbonani.
Sanbonani.
Uh-huh.
And Dumelang. Those are two different ones.
Dumelang sounds easier. Dumelang. I think I'll I'll go for that one, yeah. So keep them coming, guys. I'd like to know how to pronounce your hellos. So Irene and I both represent the African Management Institute, short AMI. And allow me to introduce us to you in case this is the very, very first time you're interacting with us. And like I said in the very beginning, please introduce yourself to us and everyone who's watching. Yeah, would love to get to profile some of you during this session. So go in the comment section and tell us about your business, where you're tuned in from. Would love to profile you. So we represent, like I said, the African Management Institute, and we exist to enable ambitious businesses from across Africa to thrive. And we do this through practical tools and training. So we have worked with over 20,000 entrepreneurs from different African countries, but we do have physical presence and offices here in Kenya, in South Africa, where Irene is tuned in from, and in Rwanda. Yeah. And speaking of Rwanda, we have some exciting news because we recently partnered, very, very recently, with the Rwanda Development Board and the MasterCard Foundation in Rwanda. And we are supporting over 2,000 entrepreneurs through a business survival bootcamp. So it's a great opportunity. So if you're tuned in from Rwanda, if you're Rwandese or your business is in Rwanda, that's an opportunity to look out for that we're very, very excited to share with you. So like I said in the beginning, back to introducing AMI, I got distracted with Rwanda. We have worked with over 20,000 entrepreneurs. And I remember when the pandemic hit the continent around March, we knew we needed to act fast to support the entrepreneurs who've been in our programs, our alumni, but even just generally entrepreneurs, to help them survive and navigate the pandemic. So, and there has been no book, or no one knows, no person in our generation, no entrepreneur in our generation knows how to survive a pandemic. No one has done that before. So we knew we needed to act fast, and it provided the opportunity for us to launch the Thrive Community. So the Thrive Community is a community of entrepreneurs who've gone through our programs, some haven't, and we provide free programs, tools, resources, and it's just a safe space for entrepreneurs to get to talk and brainstorm and network, and because the solutions do lie within us, the solutions for our businesses and the solutions to navigating. So to highlight the Thrive Community, let's watch this quick video. Great. So you can plug into the Thrive Community. In case you're not a member of the Thrive Community, the link will be posted on the comment section wherever you're watching us from, and it will also be displayed on your screen. Yeah. And thank you for your comments, guys. We have, let me just do a few shout outs, and Irene, you help me pronouncing some of these names. I see Fabian is saying Muraho. I guess that's how you say hello. I don't know which language that is. Thank you for joining, Moses. He says Sasa, that's Kenyan. Dumelang, that must be a South African. Yeah, there's
we've got an interesting one, yeah. We've got Solwezi, Zambia. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Odrire. So if we're not pronouncing it correctly, maybe send us a voice note after this and help us pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
And then go for it, Naomi. I see we've got Wolof from Senegal.
Yeah.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, and Nozipo, I hope I've pronounced your name well, but just continue to introduce yourself. She has an online business, and what does she do? Distribute Black-owned and South African-made products, which are not in stores. It's great to have you here, and thanks for joining. So continue to tell us what businesses you guys do, where you're tuned in from. Would love to hear from you. Yinka, I see you've joined us. Welcome. Yeah, so Irene, I don't know if you see more comments that I've missed.
Just a bunch of people that we just need to shout out. Kamikaze from Rwanda, thanks for tuning in. We've got Mustafa from Senegal. Sorry, I think we would say hello. Mustafa is how you would say hello, from Senegal. And your name is Tufizi. Please forgive us if we mispronounce your name. And Naomi, I think that's about it. A lot of people just saying hello. We want to get to know you. Tell us more about your business. Tell us what you're hoping to learn from this session. All righty. Naomi?
Yes, Irene. So this week, Irene, is a special week. I think there's something happening this week. Do you want to tell us about it? I think it's a very, very special week for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so we've been celebrating the Global Entrepreneurship Week. So in case you've heard about Men's Day, you've heard about Women's Day, you've heard a lot about, all kinds of celebrations. This is a special week that seeks to recognize what the role of entrepreneurship in our society is and how vital it is. It creates sensitization around why we need to be talking about entrepreneurship from a young age, where children are brought into the context of entrepreneurship. So something that is quite vital to us, and one of the pillars or themes of this session, the celebration this week, is education. So there are 3 pillars, there are 4 pillars actually to the celebration this week, Naomi. One is inclusion and policy, which is very important because we need to also allow the policy needs to blend in with what entrepreneurs are trying to do, and it has to be inclusive. And there's also ecosystems, where we're trying to strengthen ecosystems, and that's what the week seeks to sensitize people about. But something that we're quite passionate about as AMI is education, which is one of the themes that are part of the Global Entrepreneurship Week, Naomi. So we believe that as AMI, when we have better skilled entrepreneurs, we're basically setting up men and women who are able to run, and not only run, build and sustain their businesses. And we know what that means in terms of what that does to the community. It actually, Naomi, I believe it brings us back to the role of business in the community, which is to meet a need, whether it's through the products that they supply, but it's also to provide jobs. And we believe that we will be having thriving communities. So I love the video. It was very catchy. I don't know if you loved it, but we definitely love the video. There's so much that we are doing with entrepreneurs, and you can plug into that. So Naomi, before I digress, I'm very excited about our guest tonight. So I have to be quite honest and tell you what I did when I approached this guest. I sent him a DM. If you don't know what a DM is, it's basically a direct message on LinkedIn. And I think I had a pitch where I was like, you know what, I believe you're so great and you would be fantastic to speak to our entrepreneurs, and our Thrive community would just be over the moon to have you. And look at that, like a month later, here we are. I'm very excited about this. But Naomi, I don't want to take your thunder. So tell us about our guest tonight.
Yes, and I'll take you back to Global Entrepreneurship Week. I remember in a meeting today, one of our colleagues said, someone said, "Oh, it's Men's Day." Then they said, "No, but it's every day is Men's Day." Yeah. So there's a team of people who don't celebrate Men's Day and think every single day should be Men's Day. But today we can own Entrepreneurship Week. Yeah, the whole week. Yeah, we are celebrating. Yes. We're celebrating our entrepreneurs. So let's get it started. And remember, when our guests join, feel free to put your comments, questions. We'll try and get your comments featured and your questions answered as we go. So tonight we have a very special edition of Africa Thrive Live because it's a fireside chat, and we'll be having a candid conversation with a renowned and celebrated entrepreneur. He's going to be telling us about his journey in business, and how he's been able to build a celebrated sneaker brand in South Africa. He runs 16 retail stores and manages a team of over 60 staff. Yeah, so let's just watch this quick video that will help introduce our guest.
Our journey began at Gasi, but we didn't say it'll end there. We transcend boundaries. To us, everything is limitless. Nothing can stop us. Hlala simoja. But for now, kisama boss. Kisama ya Bathu. Lima super.
I was just dancing. Can I just say I love South African music?
We're so excited about this.
Like I didn't understand a lot of what was said in that video, but I was just grooving with it, yeah? And I know it's about shoes, yeah? So ladies and gentlemen, we bring to you Theo Baloyi. Welcome, Theo. Emojis, claps, likes, all those emojis on your screen, please put them up for Theo. Welcome, Theo. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
I should actually ask Theo whether he got my DM, but I'll save that for another time.
And unfortunately, I might have missed it. And I'm glad that the universe has its own way of working, and linking people. Here am I now.
Diplomatic answer. Thank you.
Yeah, blaming the universe or supporting the universe or whatever. Yeah, thank you, Theo, for joining. And please, like I said, guys, before, put your questions, comments on the comment button, and we'll be able to read them. Yeah. So, Theo, how about you introduce yourself to the audience? For those who don't know about, we've seen something about Bathu Shoes. Who's Theo? Who's Bathu?
Hi, everyone. My name is Theo Baloyi. I'm the first employee at Bathu. We are a proudly South African sneaker brand with the aim and vision to build a shoe brand that Africans can proudly affiliate with. We started from humble beginnings in a room in Alexander Township with basically the sole aim to reignite hope for our people and create sustainable jobs.
Yeah, great. Theo, can I just say, I've read this book. This is totally off script, so Irene might be looking at me like, what? But I've read this book called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. And when I was researching about your story and reading about you, I'm like, Theo needs to write a book like Shoe Dog. Yeah, your story really resonate. Yeah. So how about you tell us your journey in business and how did it start and what drove you to entrepreneurship?
I must say that, the pressure to write a book does not look like it's going to go away. It keeps on coming. Actually, my team has given me a journal that I keep in my office, and they've asked me to really, since I'm so busy, to really write it as I'm working. If something comes to mind, just keep on documenting on the journal, and 10 years later or 5 years later, it will become a book, So I don't know when the book is coming, but yeah, I've got a task that was given to me by my team to put it together. So I'm working on it bits as the day goes, So like I've said, my name is Theo Baloyi. I'm not the founder. I'm just the first employee that happened to work for Bathu. And I started from humble beginnings. And I think the entrepreneurial bug bit me when I was. So before I get to that, so I'm an accountant by profession. I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC for about 5 years. 2 years in South Africa and 3 years in the Middle East. I was based in the Middle East, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and so forth, doing asset management in that part of the world. And I think the entrepreneurial bug bit me when I was doing my second year, in BCom Accounts and Sciences. When myself and my best mate, Andrew, we started selling perfumes in the streets of Alex, or door to door. Mainly because we wanted to, literally make an extra buck for ourselves, because oftentimes in university, you have classes in different days, and sometimes you don't even have class, and you find yourself idling. And we try to apply for seasonal work and casual work and vacation work and so forth, we were not successful. So we thought, look, let's just start a business and selling perfumes, And the way we even went about raising the seed capital is quite an inspiring story because we were just students, we didn't have the fund. But we knew a guy who used to sell, cufflinks, pocket squares, and and ties and so forth. So we went to him and then he had bulk of stock and like, please give us this. How about they give us the stock on consignment? We add our own markup. We go sell them at corporate offices in Sandton and Midrand to attorneys and to accountants and so forth, And then with the proceeds that we've made from that side hustle, we managed to raise seed capital and buy all-based perfumes, which we sold in edX. And I think that's when the entrepreneurial bug, bit me, Long story short, I ended up, graduating in record time, having to work for or getting a job at an accounting firm, that side hustle sort of died out. And because I was mainly on projects, traveling and just literally building my, my career in accounting. But I think, once you're an entrepreneur, just an entrepreneur, I miss the hustle and bustle, of being in the streets and building something, because at the time doing asset management, I was governed by international financial reporting standard audit report. So it's more of like a routine work. So I wanted to go back, in the township and really build something that Africans can partly affiliate with. And all the time when I came back home from Dubai, having to be in LX, I realized that, my reality was slightly different from my corporate counterparts in a sense that being in a township in South African landscape, the geographical, I think aspect of it is different. The economics in townships are different as opposed to the suburbs. So I was like, look, I had a chat with a few people in the township and I realized that a lot of them are not employed and they're suffering and then they're not employed by choice. They just didn't have the opportunities that we have gotten. So since I was like a sneakerhead, I was like, I'm buying so much of sneakers. And there's a saying that says, if you're buying too much of it, then why not own it? Right. So I was like, okay, cool. How about I start a sneaker brand and while at it, reignite hope and create sustainable jobs for our people? Because my realities all the time when I went to the township was very different. So I would be in a township and I would see my realities, but then I'd be back in corporate, living the corporate life, and I was like, how about that I leave my job, go back home and build with my people? And 5 years later, we put about 16 retail stores. It's actually not 60 employees, about 145 employees in the business.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, so we've got about 145 employees in the business. We've got about a 3,700 square meter headquarters, in Midrand. And then, with a vision to build the shoe brand that Africans can partly affiliate with. Going then again to the primary objective, I quit one job in the Middle East, test with salary 4 times what I was earning, and I left a job that only provided for me and my family and started a business that provided for 145 more people.
Wow, Theo. I just want to double tap on that last part that you just said now. You left a well-paying job for this, what we'll call a hustle, because you missed it. What was that thing that told you, okay, now it's time to make the jump. Now it's time to get your feet wet. What was it for you? Because a lot of people would be like, it's a dream job. You are in Dubai. How could you leave that? So what was it for you?
Yeah. So I believe of, that my mentor in life is being of service, being of service to my purpose, being of service to my community, being of service to my people, because I believe that's where significance lies. I often say this, that we live in an era that has a lot of social currency, that has a lot of perception around what life should look like. But oftentimes, the social currency, the relevance fades after time. But when you are of service, to your community, people will never forget how you made them feel. Today, we might know who's the most popular influencer, but 3 years from now, we'll forget. We'll forget who's on the housewife or the housewife of Johannesburg or of Atlanta and so forth. It comes and goes. It's fame.
Sure.
It goes.
Yeah.
But service, it does not fade. So for me, it was a matter of, look, I've got this job, but how am I being of service to my community? Yes, I'm of service to the firm, but deep down in my heart, there was only one Theo who had the car, who had the corporate job, who come from Alex, and that does not really help much, it does not help much in terms of building my community and building with my people. So it was a hard decision to say, do I stay in corporate, build in corporate and the dynamics or contribute to what has already been built, or do I just quit it all, leave it all, tax free, 4 times what I'm earning, go back home and build from the ground up with my people, because they understand me, I understand them. And Ipa in the township means shoes, and we're building something that is meaningful to us, to our core, to our heart. So if I can make that jump and leave it for a greater purpose of being of service, I will have something to live for, and I'll find true happiness in me, and I'll be living my purpose. And I often say this, that in the 5-year tenure that we've been in business, God forbid that we close down, the shops close down, the headquarters close down. One thing that will forever remain is that people will never forget what we've done for them and how we've served our communities in that 5 years. And for me, that was that thing that I wanted to pursue, that purpose of being of service to my community. Because where I come from, a lot of people complain about a lot of things. They complain about the government, they complain about the infrastructure projects that are not completed, they complain about corruption that happens in the government, but they do nothing about it. I just wanted to keep quiet, go back to my room, build one sneaker at a time, employ one person at a time, and be of service. And that's why I quit my job.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to ask a question that so we have entrepreneurs here, and a lot of them are driven with purpose and why, and the fact that you want to change your community or simply just change your family. Yeah, and you've said that Bathu is now employing over 100 people, and a lot of people in the entrepreneurship space have been talking about how manufacturing is the way to go in terms of just hiring and being able to employ more people. So could you tell us a bit more about your business model? How do you manage to have all those people on? Do you manufacture in South Africa? Tell us a bit more about that.
Thank you. I really love that question because it's close to my heart. So being an accountant by profession, I've never worked in retail my life myself, so I did about 18 months of research and development, proof of concept before even starting the business, all the behind the scenes work around retail sector, so one thing that I wanted to do, I didn't want to just build a sneaker brand for the hype of it that comes from South Africa. I really did my research, and one of the fascinating, I think, facts or findings from my research was that we've got about 7 continents in the world. I'll give you a typical example. You look at South America. In South America alone, they've got about 2 big brands from Brazil, to be specific, Ipanema and Havaians. You go to the USA, the States. They've got about, I think, 3, if not, 3 maybe popular brands. They've got Nike, started by Phil Knight. They've got Under Armour, started by Kevin Plank. Converse, started by Chuck Taylor. And a lot of European shoe brands, your Pumas, your Adidas, and so forth, and many Italian footwear brands. Actually, I think Italy is leading in terms of footwear, that we as Africans consume. Then I came down to Africa. I couldn't find one shoe brand that can be benchmarked with these brands that I've mentioned. And I'm gonna say that again. I'm not saying there was no shoe brands in Africa. There were a lot of shoe brands from Africa, but none of them, not even one, can be benchmarked. And maybe let's double tap on that a bit. Benchmark in terms of what, benchmark in terms of product design, market share, even maybe profit. We can even take it further to CSI. Yet there's billions and billions of US dollars that leave this continent going to other parts of the world. And we as Africans, we consume so much of sneakers. So it's like, it does not make sense. How is that possible that we consume so much sneakers? But when we talk about sneaker culture and the sneaker industry, we don't even have one from this continent that can be benchmarked. All of them, there's a lot of them just below what we know. So the vision came from there. How about that we build a sneaker brand? And I'm going to answer a question, but I'm just trying to tell you where the thought process about how I build my business and my business model comes from. So I was like, how about that I build a sneaker brand that all Africans can really proudly affiliate with? Look at the brand promise and say, not because it's from South Africa or anything, but because of what they stand for. I can affiliate, and it's going to be a sneaker of choice, because we Africans, we are known to be people who's full of heritage and culture and so forth, yet we're not telling our stories. Then when I did research, I looked at the landscape of how these footwear brands have really, or the mechanics of how these footwear brands have been built from scratch to scaling up. And one of the findings was that a lot of them have started as urban brands. when Phil Knight started, he sort of didn't even have an idea exact. All he wanted to do was to build running shoes, but as to how to go about it, didn't know. Kevin Plank as well. It was about getting clothes for athlete that when they're relaxing in recovery mode they can wear. And Eben, very Eben, Bathu same story. However, the way they built them from the beginning, it has always been about partners, going IPO route, getting funding, distribution rights, and so forth, so that it can scale it. So because I knew that the ecosystem in Africa for sneakers is so difficult to penetrate, the best way that I needed to do was to get the mechanics of my value chain tied to the strategy, tied to the core principles, so the primary principles of reigniting hope and creating sustainable jobs. The question mark was, how do I do that within my value chain? So it's like my vision to date, I wanted to build a value chain and ecosystem end to end that I control and that I own. I don't have funding in my business. I don't have a partner. I've never received funding or anything. I've built it literally from the ground up. And then I'm in control of the value chain. The reason for that is not because of greed or anything, but because my primary objective is to reignite hope and create sustainable jobs, and to have control of the brand so that I can scale it and grow it the way I want to grow it. So from the means of production, if I own that, right, I get to employ people in that. I take it from the factory, put it in my warehouse, I get to employ people, because in the warehouse, there's people who do packaging, who do QC, and so forth. Then I get it in my own truck, the one that I own, to get a driver to drive it. Then they take it to my retail store that I retail and that I own. And in the retail stores, I get to employ someone to sell the shoes. And when the customer, African sister, brother that supports me, that resonates with the brand, comes in, I get to get their data. Data is a big thing in e-commerce now. I get to tap into their data, remarket the brand, re-communicate the brand promise, and so forth. And that's how I got him to do it in different scales. So I just did not open it 3,700 square meter. I started in a room in LX. I went to a 15 square meter. I got another 15 square meter. I got another 15 square meter. Then I went to a 310 square meter. I got another 310 square meter. Then I realized I'm not growing this, and then I went to a 3,700 square meter and so forth. So in bits and pieces of it, to really build this mechanics. And over time, and in the first 2 years of my business, I actually did not get in. I didn't open any retail stores. I had a lot of offers from other retailers. Malls wanted to give me space and so forth, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to build a working capital for my business so that I can fund my expansion. So, and I realized that because I don't have any backup, I need to build my own working capital. Not only that, but build my own backup. And how I did it was, I was running a high turnover business with low operating cost or OPEX projects. And that allowed me to build working capital for 2 years. And I was joking the other day, and I was speaking to my mentors, like quite sick signs, because it was like I knew there's going to be COVID-19, when I started. The way I ran and built my working capital, it was sort of the way I was building and saving up for the expansion. And it's like I knew that in 3 years from now on, we will have COVID-19 that is going to impact the retail sector. When COVID came, because I already had the working capital, I already had the building blocks in my value chain, I actually did not even, fire anyone in my business. The month of April, when the country went on lockdown, no one worked in our business, but I paid 100% to my people, mainly because I know how it feels like to live in Alexandria without paycheck. So if people are not working because of the pandemic, what happens? And because I don't have shareholders to go back and report to say, why are you paying people when they're not working? It's our money that we've built to our core primary objective. So I know how it feels like. So I don't have a pressure to report to any shareholders to say, why are we paying these people when they're not working and so forth. And I think that's how I got about it, to fund the business and grow the business and so forth. Sorry, I can talk the whole day, but I hope I answered.
No, we do want you to speak the whole time. That's perfect.
Yeah. And when you after all that, I'm like, Bathu needs to come to Kenya and to East Africa, and I could just you've sold me at least as a potential client.
Yeah, and you've got a very great in Kenya, and I'm in East and West Africa as well. So yeah, that's something that we're looking to do in the next time years. We're looking to expand further in those regions.
So Theo, you've said you bootstrapped your business and with no capital, just with no external equity or a lot of debt, just saved and bit by bit. I think that resonates a lot with a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening. So my question is, I know you did have your savings through this pandemic and your business was your cash flow was good. And what I realized when we were researching about your business is when the pandemic hit, for a lot of people, they were looking at e-commerce and taking their business online. And we saw Bathu is opening a store, a physical store during this pandemic. How about you tell us about that? What was the strategy around that? And tell us a bit about what you've done in the online space and what's making you go back to retail and believe so much in retail when everyone is saying how retail is going to be a very a high risk industry in the future.
Yeah, I think for me, from day one, it has always been our vision to expand, at this length. And, thanks to COVID-19, because it has allowed us to pause a bit in terms of footprint and really, because we're growing vastly before COVID, and without really looking at optimizing our e-commerce platform and making sure that we integrate it with brick and mortar. So, during the pandemic, we pressed the reset button and went back to our e-commerce mechanics to say, how do we get to optimize, number one, our e-commerce, number two, to integrate it with our brick and mortar store while delivering our brand promise. So if a client comes on our platform online and buys a shoe, they get the same customer experience as a person who went a client who went to our brick and mortar and bought a shoe. So ideally, looking at the general consumer in South Africa, who's now slowly but surely getting used to and being comfortable with buying online, being a new brand, and I think that's where a lot of people miss it. Ideally, consumers still prefer, the look and feel. And because you've got such a huge brand promise that you need to, cater for, and that you really need to, build a sort of a solid consumer base that you can, that you can gain the loyalty from. You need that phase for your, for your online store. You need to build, that brand promise and the values and what you are selling to them, and let them gain confidence, in many ways. And then we have people that have really supported us before we even had stores that have went online, and bought shoes. But a lot of them, that come because we collate this data, and that's how we get to make informed decisions as to where do we open our, our stores, because that data comes from online. And, the traffic that we get in terms of, our South African landscape, people who are interacting with our, online store. And all the time when you open a store, we do a survey. A lot of people come and say, thank you, open a store. I've been following you, but this thing of online is not really my thing, and so forth. And then again, we get to really engage with customers because, consumers need to have an end-to-end experience. And, depending on the nature of consumers, traditional consumers or the new era consumers, you really need to give them platform to engage with the brand, and really listen to them. I mean, recently we just introduced, a sneaker customization, gallery in our in-store sneaker customization, where you buy a Bathu, you can come in and really customize it in store. So our strategy is that we want to really integrate the two. And I think I just want to also, say this, that oftentimes businesses that are really suffering in retail are businesses that never had a strong online presence. So for me, because I'm a new business, I can, simultaneously build my e-commerce integrated with my brick and mortar. I mean, growing up, the only way to go to Edgar's for me was to go to a store and choose my shoes. You tell me now, after 20 years, you want to tell me to go online and buy at Edgar's. It's a different story. It's not the same because the customer experience is the same. The advantage of a new incoming business today is that you can afford to match the two because you can build the trust. You can really build the trust and get the data and grow it. And then while doing it, and the good thing about this, remember, I don't own the mall. I lease the store. It's for 3 years. So it's not that I'm there forever or anything like that. So should anything change in e-commerce, I can always do. But the store will allow me to build my brand promise, to build my loyalty, to get my customer base, to build, my brand solidly, because people have interacted with it before. You know what I'm saying? And then e-commerce also gives you things like click and collect, where you can integrate it. I can buy my shoe in Venda, South Africa, and then go exchange it in Cape Town and Bathu store. That's because I've got a cousin who lives in Rustenburg, but I'm in Durban. I want to buy a shoe, and then I can buy it in store in Durban, and then ask my cousin to go collect it in Rustenburg. That integration. And one thing again, I want to repeat this: I don't own the mall. I lease the store to build my brand promise, so I can integrate with time. The difference with the traditional retailers, they never had a strong online presence. So traditionally, their consumers are like, and depending on who you're serving. Bathu, it's a cool factor shoe. I always say this. We're not selling to people who are in need of shoes. We're selling to a client who wants to go to a party, to a date on the weekend, who's got a cool outfit and they want to complete with a nice pair of sneakers. And that's who I'm selling to. I'm not selling to someone who buys sneakers twice a year. I'm selling to a consumer who's, in a great working class. They've got a few thousand rand to spend on sneakers. They've got a party to go to, and they want a nice pair of shoes. And then next week they want to wear it again. Then they want another pair of shoes, and then for a different event.
So you own the supply chain, but you don't own the store. I like that.
Yeah, I don't own the store. I own the supply chain, and in supply chain, I can integrate it and optimize it in many ways. So people, and generally because of maybe for me, I always say this to my team. I've got a very strong risk appetite, and I'm very aggressive in my approach. In my business, they call me the Cristo Visa, the new Cristo Visa, because I'm very aggressive in my approach, and I've got a huge, risk appetite. So, and I always say that, to say, because I started with my own money and I put it forth, and I can risk with it, and that's how I approach it. And I always say this, that I don't own them all. Maybe we should be asking people who are building malls, what are they thinking? Because that's what it's about. I don't own the mall. I own the store. I lease the store.
Wow, Theo. Nuggets of wisdom here. I want to go back to brand building, and you spoke a little bit about it and giving a face to the brand. So something that you're quite famous for in South Africa mostly, and I think across Africa, is you're working with great influencers. Shout out to all the fabulous people you're working with, from Kanye Mbao to Somizi. And I know there's an entrepreneur who is sitting here and thinking, oh my God, how do I get to that kind of status? How do I even start this kind of partnerships with influencers? So what was the thought pattern behind that?
So it was all by default. So I started in an era in 2015 when influencer marketing was a thing, right? Everyone was doing influencer marketing for different, brands, for different objectives, and then brands were choosing the influencers based on, I think, alignment, brand alignment, and so forth. When I started, I never had the money for that. So because our brand story, and the way I started it, let me just speak about this a bit. So IPA in South African township means shoe. So South Africa is known to be a diversified country, a rainbow nation, as Tata's dream, or Nelson Mandela's dream, to build a rainbow nation. And the rainbow nation comes with different things. In South Africa, we've got different ways of eating, different ways of speaking, different ways of engaging, and so forth. We've got about 11 official languages and so forth. So, but there's one thing in South African township, and South African townships are known for the ugly things, crime, poverty, and so forth. So one thing that about IPA to this weight, you don't have to speak Ndebele, Zulu, Sotho to understand what it means. Anywhere you go in South Africa, in the townships, and you say Bathu, everyone knows about this. And it's a word that has started way prior democracy, in the days of Sophia Town, in the federal of his shoe. So I realized that it's one word that really unifies us and no one is doing anything about it. So I wanted to tell that story to the world, right? To say, we want to build the shoe brand that Africans can partly affiliate with, and this is what it means, because no one is telling that story. It's one word that really unifies us as South Africans in referral to a shoe. So my pitch has always been there. So when I started, I didn't have the capital and so forth. I had to hustle. Because I'm a perfume boy, I used to hustle people when I was selling perfumes, door to door in LX, and I needed to have that gear and that phase on. So I went to, I realized that there's a lot of influencer marketing that is happening and I can't afford it. So the best way to do it is to hustle people. And then, there's a saying that says each and every node leads you to your next years. So the mentality was like, I'm gonna hustle as many influencers as I can, and I'll get to my years, one day. And I literally drove to the SABC, Metro FM studios. I got Somizi, who was a big influencer, a celebrity, a role model to a lot of people in Africa. And I hustled him. I was like, dude, look, this is who I am. This is what my brand is about. This is what I want to build. And he looked at it and it's like, they look cool. Let me try them on, and I'm not gonna post about them on socials. If he told me straight, I asked him that, can you post them on shoe? Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. It's money to do that. And if I like them, maybe it'll be like, yeah, I'll post. And then, okay, cool. I was a bit saddened, but then he wore them. And then the weekend of Durban, July, he posted. And after posting about that, a lot of influencers came to us like, how can we help you? Beautiful South African story. So I was blessed in that sense, right? That a lot of people, your Benny McCarthy, a lot of celebrities, DJs, Boo, you name them in South Africa, really embraced our shoe. And to a point that even Benny McCarthy at some point bought these shoes for the whole team when he was coaching Cape Town City. And I was fortunate in the sense that I got in a lot of influencers without even paying for them. And that has really helped build the social currency of my business, has really helped me to tap into an audience that I never thought I could tap, has really exposed my brand, and it worked for me. So only now that we had to look at who are the best brand advocates for the brand, who speaks directly to our people, who really, knows how to speak to the consumer and best, sell the brand and advocate for the brand and the brand story. So that's how the partnerships came about. We had Black Motion, Kanyimba, Sumizi, and many others who are just doing, from the bottom of their heart, just to, keep on telling our story and our brand promise. And that went a long way, because at some point when we started, I think it was about 2 years, 2 years into this business, people used to call our shoe the mesh edition, the Somizi shoe. They will go like, oh, we want the Somizi shoe. Like, oh, you've got the Somizi shoe. Because everyone has seen it, Somizi wearing it, And I think that played a role in terms of growing our business. And I'm fortunate and blessed that till today, we still have a relationship with them.
Wow, that's fantastic. And just a follow-up question, how did the partnership with Castlelight, of course I have to touch on that, how did that come about?
Same story, it's like about, we are a proudly South African sneaker brand. Castlelight is a proudly Africa premium brand as well, premium beer brand in Africa from AB and Bev. And so they wanted to find a way to, I think, to work with a local brand, give it a little bit of leverage, and open up their market a bit so that we can tap into that, telling African stories. Because exactly where I started and this is the ironic part, is that where I started, in a room in Alex, just across the road, there's a tavern where AB and Bev would come with their brands and come exhibit there. So they wanted to find the best way to resonate with a client that, supports them and buys their beer at that, while telling a positive South African story. And then I think we were a brand and choice as to what we stand for, our brand promise, our values. And it was a great platform for me, a great opportunity, because they have trusted their brand with our brand, and we managed to tap into their audience. And also, I always say this, that they have actually opened doors for us to really see how they run the business, how they corporatize the business, the corporate side of it, which is something that I'm very big on, corporatizing my business, and they've been a great, I think, a business to work with in terms of exposing me to that as well. So it came about that they gave us a call in February, where they said, hey, we want to work with you. We went for a briefing session. The objective was set, and we got
they
together.
Called you.
Yeah,
That's
they called
fantastic.
me.
Yeah.
They called me, and then we went into for a briefing session. We were keen. And then what humbles me more is that even in lockdown, when obviously the beverage business or beer business, was heavily impacted by the lockdown, and they obviously had to look at their costs and so forth. We were one of the projects that they didn't cut. So they cut some other projects, but for us, the Bathu lives on. The minute the presidents announced level 1, and then the restrictions are lifted a bit, this collaboration is going to leave, and then that shows the trust that they had in our brand, and really, really humbles me. But it was about really tapping into, consumers and trying to tell a beautiful story, inspire people, because remember, people consume, alcohol for different reasons, when they're sad, when they're happy, in celebratory mode. So this is a great brand growing up. We are a beer that people use to celebrate, how about we collaborate and tell a beautiful, proudly African story.
Wow. I want to come to the audience question. So guys, if you have a burning question, do write it and then it will pop up and I'll see it. But before we go there, Theo, you really, really need to write this book. Let me tell you why. So, I'm trying to pitch why you should write it. So at AMI, we're very keen on content and using content that is African, and us, even in our case studies, using our own stories. And when you are talking about using influencers, I remember that in that Phil Knight Shoe Dog book, he was in the 90s, he was taking his shoes to NBA players and telling them, wear my shoe and this. And it would be refreshing to use such stories like your story to talk about influencer marketing and all these things. Yeah. So I hope I'm adding to your team's efforts of getting influencers to write that book. Yeah.
Noted. Thank you.
So
and
Chris,
this is recorded too.
We'll take your word for it. So let me just read the comments and questions. Chris Oliver on LinkedIn is saying it was a big step moving from trading, I guess in PwC, to making product. Very impressive. Mbulelo is saying much respect to my Mfanakasi. I hope I pronounced that right. Yeah. Yvonne, I believe your questions have been answered. Yes, they have. Femelo is saying, sure, Theo Mfan. Okay, I will not read that. But the question is, what impact or influence did working in the Middle East, especially Dubai, have in starting your own business? I think you have answered that, but you want to do a quick fire on that question?
Yeah. So Mfanakasi, it means like the boy from the township. So Alexandra, it's called Gomorrah. So it's saying, my boy from the township.
Got you.
So yeah. What's the name? I missed the name. Sorry.
Femelo.
I think
Oh, Pamelo.
Pamelo.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So Pamela, thanks for the question. So it had a great influence because I think for me, and oh, by the way, I don't know if you know, but Phil Knight was also an accountant and worked for PwC. So I just wanted to him there, So for me, I think working in the Middle East, I realized I work with different people from different parts of the world, but primarily, the Emiratis, how they are so authentic to their culture. And I mean, they only fly Emirates because it's theirs. You know what I mean? They only consume, their own products, and they're proud to be an Emirati, or, in that specific part of the world. So I started asking myself, one day when I was traveling to I think I was traveling to Saudi Arabia, and I had this guy who had a retail store at Dubai airport. And when I had a chat with him, because his store had so much traffic, I found out that he's actually from France, but living in the Middle East and telling a proudly French story, or selling a brand that a lot of French community can resonate with. And I started asking myself, what are we doing as Africans, to tell our own stories, to build stories and brands that Africans can proudly resonate with and, affiliate with. So living in that from a cultural perspective, I realized how people take, pride in who they are, and coming from Africa and South Africa, I know that Africa alone is known to be a very heritage country. But no one is doing anything about our heritage, about our stories, about who we are. We are always at the receiving end. We at the receiving end of the latest app, the latest technology. We wait for things to be done in Silicon Valley, a Facebook to come, a Twitter to come, so that we can consume. But no one does anything about our heritage, building it into business models that the rest of the world can receive. We wait for Airbnb to happen so that we can use Airbnb. We wait for many other things. And when you are strive, from Zim trying to do something, we are the very same people that don't want to support him. So the learning was from a cultural perspective to say, we really need to build value chains, business models, ecosystems that are full of our heritage and the rest of the world can receive. And for me, that was an eye opener, because how we consume and how we build and what it means to us, because in other parts of the world, they embrace who they are more than anything.
Yeah. There's a question here from Lawrence. If you could take it really fast, how do you distribute to other markets? How can I distribute? Do you have any tips around distribution, that supply chain of distribution? Any quick tips?
So for me, our shoes are exclusively available at our own retail stores. So I don't do any sort of reselling or distribution. But in terms of, obviously, with the power of e-commerce, we managed to, send our shoes across the globe. And then also, we build our own infrastructure, to distribute in our own, from means of production to warehousing to, retailing at our own stores in South Africa. And that's how I try to do it. But obviously, we sell our shoes all over the globe through our e-commerce platform.
Wow, thanks for that, Theo. So we do have another question, but before that, I just want to shout out all those people who are saying such great stuff about you. You're oozing such wisdom nuggets. That's from Conrad. I have to shout out to my mom, who also wrote to say, Theo, this is very inspiring. I love the idea of starting small and expanding as a business grows. Shout out to my mom, of course. And Fairfield Faith, our very own, I want to be like you when I grow up in business. So a lot of lovely comments for you.
Thank
I have
you.
a question, though, that I want to pose. This is from Refilo Pico. She says, Bathu is loved throughout the country and the support is huge. You know this. But how do you get to your pricing margins, especially in comparison to the pricing in the international pricing margins? And what qualitative guarantee do you still do you see in comparison? So she's basically asking, how are you pricing comparing to what the international market places as their pricing margins?
So thank you for that question. So tell you a story. I mean, I'm coming from an accounting background. I did my when I did my 18 months of research and development, one of the things that I worked on was, forecast and pricing, and having to learn the technicalities of what informs prices in retail, for products, right, for means of production and so forth. And I did about 21 samples for a mesh edition. And the reason for that, because, sample number 4, sample number 6, sample number 12, sample number 13, was not of great quality, and did not have the kind of components that I wanted to put together. So meaning that every series of sampling that I did was adding more to our unit cost, right? So I did it in a way that I had to enhance each and every component, from the sneaker technology to the molds to the shoelaces and everything else, and put it together to a unit cost. Because of, ideally, remember what I said when I started, that I wanted to build a shoe brand that Africans can proudly affiliate with, right? And benchmark it, and try to benchmark it, but maybe 30 years from now on, be benchmarked with the international footwear brands, from pricing, profit, market share. We can even take it further to CSI. So, and for me to do that, I did not only want to, there's a lot of people that build for the sake of building so that they can have the social currency and sail on. So everything else in my business was informed, from the forecasting, benchmarking it. Obviously, I was getting advice from the factory that I source, right? Because they've been in the game when I started 52 years. I think now they're about 57 years of footwear manufacturing. So my objectives was very, forward to say, look, guys, I want to build a high quality sneaker brand or sneaker, right? And what informs. And obviously, factories will tell you, well, we can get it to be benchmarked, but you need to know that unit cost will be high, and so forth. So a lot of dynamics and variables inform that, because of, it was not only about the story or anything else. I wanted to build a great quality. So to answer your question, yes, there's a lot of, I think, dynamics that went into putting the pricing together. A lot of cost that went into it, and each and every component in terms of quality, and also the lifespan of the shoe, to say, if I'm buying a Bathu today, what's the lifespan of the shoe? Because of, if it's 1,200, if I buy another brand, how long does it last as well? So we also did that kind of testing as well, to say what's the lifespan of the shoe, and then what informs the price. I hope I answered the question.
You did justice to it. I just want to ask you something quite general, and if you could just retrospect with us, what are the lessons that you've learned so far? If there's 2 things that you could swear by that have been the winning ingredient for you, what are those 2 things?
2 things that have been, sorry,
yeah, any lessons that
again?
you've learned, any lessons that you've learned in your journey at the moment that you could say, wow, this has been a wake-up call for me?
I've got a few, so I'll just give you 2, right? But I've got a lot. I would say, I think, patience and respecting time. You know, respecting time is very, 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 very important. You need to respect time because time is very valuable in business, right? Either it's a time in terms of, you know, meeting with stakeholders and running a business and how you use your time is very, very important. Number 2 that I would advise to, and I think with this session will be very, very relevant, is that, you know, you need to respect your human capital or your HR. Never try to cheat that. I know sometimes when you start seeing, you're like, but why do you have to pay so much money for contract or for recruitment or for onboarding? I can literally just do it, you know, informally, write a 1-pager, 2-pager contract and protect myself and protect the employee and go on with the business. But human capital, if you do it the right way from early stage of the business, it will be a great investment for a business because when you go through a growth curve, it will sustain you. Human capital will help you identify the right people, to retain the right talent, to recruit the right way, and to develop the right way. You might not see it when you start because when you start, you want to get this thing out and just make your money and build the business and reinvest. But be very, very careful about how your human capital, HR, runs. Because when you go through a growth curve and you've got 60 people working for you and you did not do your human capital right, you're going to see flames. You're going to have people issues. So that's one of the lessons that I've learned, to say, you know, I was lucky that I've sort of gotten it right, but I've seen what it could do to your business if you don't do it right from early stages. And I'm saying this because I know we don't want to spend money when we start. We don't want to. I don't want to get, you know, an HR consultant to do human capital for me because I can survive without it. I can do without it. Yes, you can when you're starting, but I'm not sure if you can sustain the growth when the growth happens if you don't do it right.
Yeah. Theo, I'm going to ask you to have a serious quick fire. Like I'm going to put a clock here and then we'll have 10 seconds, like one comment, Theo, one comment, so that we can answer all these questions. Yeah. But before I go there, you mentioned something earlier about your mentors and having a tribe. Yeah. So in the My Thrive community, we are trying to build together a community of entrepreneurs to just help navigate and survive. So what do you think is what has the impact been for just your network around your business? Yeah, what's the one key thing that has worked around building, can I say, a tribe? Yeah, whether they're friends, mentors, or just generally networking. Do you get to a point you're like, no, now this is I'm big enough, I don't need to meet other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, very good question. So I think even in that too, you know, there's I think a great help that comes from networking and having the right people. But I think you need to listen to the people that have walked the journey before you, you know, that have been there before you and have really understood the dynamics of what it means to build a business, right? Because I myself, I was very fortunate to have been mentored by, you know, a great mentor of mine, you know, when I when I was doing my BCom accounting. And coming from Alex, I was not exposed to, you know, the things that he was teaching me and what he was telling me, you know, even though I never had a big business, I was not even employed. But the nuggets that he shared with me about what business is about, and even he even told me about other people that are doing great, you know, in business, and so forth. I mean, I'll give you a typical example. He would tell me about how other people are doing business in London. You know, when he worked for Investec, he would travel. So I'm going away to London, you know, for a few weeks in the business. For me as a young boy, it's like going overseas, you know, it's, you know, you're going to go to London and work for a week. But then as you grow, you realize that that's the nature of business. There's nothing big about it. That's how business is done, bro, you know? So what I'm trying to say is that try to, you know, for me, I think there was a lot of, from growing up, from when I was still in school, associating with the right people that have done things that I've never done and they were willing to share with me has sort of been an eye-opener. For example, as I was going through, a scale, one of my mentors, I think maybe you guys know him, Vusi Mawai, he told me about the nature of scale because I think he's been involved. And that's how, most of the lessons I've learned from him about what do you do when you're going through a scale curve and how do you maintain it and what do you do and so forth. Because, it's things that I never knew before, and I think for me, it has been of great help, and it's very, very important to have that network, have a point of reference. And I always say this, that because we go on YouTube, we read Forbes magazine, we read about the late, Dr. Richard Maponya, and what they've built with the Maponya group in South Africa, and in nowhere in their story, they tell you about, that part of scale and growth is to fire people. Sometimes we have to fire people. No one talks about that because all we see is, all the great things and all the accolades. But when you get to a position where you realize that, oh, this employee and so forth and so are not aligning with my vision, you feel some type of way to fire them, and not understanding that that's a part of scale and growth that no one ever talks about. It's getting the wrong people off the bus, the right people in the bus, and getting the right people in the right seat. No one wants to talk about that because it's a sensitive matter. So only through the shoulders of giants that we stand on, they get to educate us and show us the light. So that power of network is very, very important.
Okay. I want to loop in a question here and here. Remember, quick fire. So
sorry.
There's a question here from Bulelo. He's asking, and you talk about firing people. Do you have a biggest loss or challenge that you felt you want to share with others today?
Yeah. Not to be honest with you, not that I know of. Not that I know of. I think
that's okay. Nothing. So Yingpe is asking, how do you handle quality objection when your product is compared with a foreign product? So how do you handle rejection in general, especially coming from a client who's not happy? This is not the brand promise you talked about.
Yeah. So one of the most important things that we do in our business, we listen. So I listen to rejection and I try to address it, depending on the nature of it and where it comes from. But we listen a lot and try to, better whatever the concern is. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so it's great to always listen. Theo, I just want to throw in a couple of comments. There is one from a LinkedIn user, inspirational story, definitely worth a case study, especially noting the balanced growth strategy and long-term outlook. I quit the supply business model and cost management through the life cycle. Well done. So yeah, so that's a big up to you. And there's a lot of people say big up all over the place. So that's awesome. I think I wanted to ask you a question about your future plans for Bathu. Where do you see Bathu in the next 5 years? Because now you're already 5. What does the next 5 look like for you?
I think the next 5, it's more about trying to build more meaningfully and being of service, not only to South Africa, but to the SADC region, East Africa as West Africa as well, and then it does not necessarily have to be through brick and mortar, but through brand, awareness and collabs in that space, in those regions, and being that African brand that everyone can really resonate with. And I always say this: our brand does not only speak to, people who buy our shoes, but it also speaks to kids in the townships that probably want to support us. They like the story, but yet, they can't afford it. Yet they keep on sharing our story to people who maybe not necessarily our styles and our designs are not for them, but they keep on buying for their loved ones, for their friends, as gifts and so forth. It speaks to each and every African who's on a journey of greatness. Our tagline says, walk your journey. And then we want to be a shoe of choice for everyone who embarks on a journey of greatness, a journey of impacting change, a journey of making a difference across Africa. And that's what our brand speaks to. And I want to one day see it, in 5 years from now on, having to fulfill that promise that, whoever in Kenya, in Naomi in Kenya, not necessarily buying, our shoes, but being able to advocate about this story of an African proudly South African sneaker brand, African sneaker brand, and about walking your journey.
That's really beautiful, Theo. I wanted to just ask you a question about, you're relatively young, Theo. So how have you managed to, relatively young, how have you managed to build credibility? Because I can imagine you going to pitch or telling people this is what I have in mind. A lot of people might have been like, okay, sounds very dreamy, maybe not realistic.
Yeah.
So how have you played around that?
And I think that's the difference. I from day one when I left PwC, because I understood, the dynamics of where I'm going and where I'm going to build this business, I decided not to talk and just to do. I never told anyone about anything, because from even when I did my proof of concept, we were declined 13 times. And I remember I started looking at that, those declines. We declined 13 times for our fiction. But I understood that, and we were declined mainly because we wanted to build a shoe out of mesh edition, our mesh edition. In shoe manufacturing, mesh edition, the mesh material is used as a component of the shoe, on top, on the side, at the back. But I wanted to build the entire shoe with that. And they declined us. And for me, I was like, people won't see your vision, because when God spoke to you, they were not there. You were alone.
Wow.
And people have a different audience. They've got a different lens on. So when people criticize, when people hate, when people don't believe in your idea, don't take it personal. They were not there when God spoke to you. They didn't hear that voice. They don't have the lens that you've got on. They don't see what you see. So why get mad? Why talk? You know what I mean? So for me, from day one when I left my work, I left the tax-free salary. I often say this, I was not fired. I was actually up for promotion. I had good relations with everyone in the office. The only black guy in the Middle East Dubai office. Everyone liked me, and I left it mainly because, I had this vision, and then only me had that lens to see this vision. It's like when you've got that, canera, and then you're the only person who can see it. You're the only person who can feel it. You can only be the only person who can touch it. You're the only person who can think about it. You're the only person who can see it happening. Then why try to tell the next person and worry about the next man, about what you see? So from day one, I just went and just started working. And from a room and from one shoot to the next. And that's what I've done.
Yeah, I like that. So let your work speak for itself.
Yeah.
So there's a question here, Lawrence. I don't know what your thoughts are. From Lawrence, Theo. Are you open to e-commerce cross-integration platforms? Are you open to, and what would your advice be for entrepreneurs who are probably in product, and now there's so many sites. There's Jumia, don't know what sites there are in South Africa, but is that stuff you consider for your business, and what is your advice to others?
And I wanna sort of and that's a very good question. Not entirely, not now. Mainly because I'm very specific and intentional about building a shoe brand that Africans can partly affiliate with. And there's a certain way that I want to communicate the brand promise and resonate with the client and connect with the client. And I'm still yet to figure it out as to what is the best way to do it and finalize it and polish it. And before I can hand it over to other platforms and retailers and other e-commerce platforms to do it for me or to help me do it, first I need to clearly define it and sign it off and polish it and have green light, so that even when I've got other stakeholders in the future whereby we're retailing it in an Amazon or wherever, other platforms, right, I can clearly indicate and give them a directive and instruction to say, this is how we want to sell it. But because I'm still working on that brand promise as to how I want to best communicate it, for now, no, and I think, I don't know if I answered that question, but I think going back to the previous question also is that when you do the work, people recognize from one accolade to the next, from what you've gotten, Forbes dates and updates and so forth. And all of that builds the credibility for you. But over time, after the work is done, Yeah.
So Theo, this month on the Thrive community, we do monthly themes. Yeah, so this month we've been talking about strategically planning for the new year. Yeah, the pandemic has hit different businesses differently. Some have shut down or built new product lines. Others have managed to survive. Others, like yourself, who had that backup cash, those cash reserves, have seen new opportunities and are going for them. So, but it's gonna be a new year. 2021 is coming. So what do you do as an entrepreneur to strategically plan for a new year? What are some of the tips you can share with others? Either 2, 3 things that you do to ahead of the new year to sort of plan, this is where I'm going.
Okay, cool. So with my business where we are now, we sort of, corporatize our business. So we've got a corporate team that, we work with, beside the retail and many other things that we do. So one of the things that we do, I put an escort team together, and just I think the first week of December, we're gonna go away as an escort team to make sure that we review the year, we review our vision, and we clearly communicate it so that it can come from top management going down, so that our people are aligned across the business. So number one, to plan for 2021, we're gonna go away and really look into our business model, our value chain, our failures, our successes, our weaknesses, inefficiencies in systems and internal controls and policies as well, to redefine that and redefine our brand promise, so that when we go in next year and have to give that CEO speech or vision to the entire team, it's all aligned from top management going down, and that's one of the things that we're doing in our business. And also, I think, there should be a little bit of fun. We're a young company in our business, so before that, in year close, we're gonna try to have a year-end function this year, where everyone is involved in our company, and there's gonna be exciting things happening there, from our ceremonies, recognizing the best people in the business and so forth. Yeah, so exciting stuff. But we're also looking at what COVID-19 has really taught us about. For me, I think in our business, like I said, for me as an African, actually, I'm tired of being at the receiving end. So to answer the question, to say, how do we get our business to be, the business that, other people receive, or the product that other people receive? An Italian guy looks at our brand and goes like, I like this brand, not because it's from Africa, but because their brand promise speaks to me, their sense of style speaks to who I am. And I always say this, because any other brand, no one forces brand to people. Brand speaks to people, and you need to build in that. So yeah, that's what we do. Try to, because one of our pillars in our business is inclusion and diversity. So everything else is well informed, the insights, and it incorporates everyone's view and input so that we can make a call.
That's awesome. Theo, we could listen to you all night. This is how great this session is. I just want to ask you, what advice would you have for an entrepreneur whose business has been interrupted? And we're talking about the future right now, but they're very uncertain of what the future looks like for them. What would you tell them?
Sure. I think, the pandemic has given us an opportunity to press the reset button, to restructure, to reinform, to reinforce, a lot of things about not only, the continent, but the world. So we need to ask ourselves as Africans that, what is it? Because there should be a purpose and an objective, why you're doing something. So, and what is the best way to do it? So you really need to be able to answer that, because of now, everyone, has pressed the reset button. So go back and really have clear intentions as to how are you best helping the continent build, an inclusive ecosystem and infrastructure that is going to be beneficial for our continent.
Wow, Theo, this has been splendid. I don't want to speak on behalf of Naomi, but I have to say this has been such a great session, and so many people are sending great raves and talking about how awesome you are and how wise you are. So if you do get a moment, I know you're a very busy man, but if you do get a moment, please interact with them on our social media platforms. There are people asking if you do mentorship and all that stuff. So hopefully you'll answer those questions in person. But it's been really awesome to have you, and thank you for honoring us by,
thank you.
Coming through. So that's been awesome. Naomi, what a session.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Theo. Just a few next steps for all of us to remember. Join us next week on Thursday, and to be able to plug into such conversations that we've had today and even others, join the Thrive community. Yeah, the link is on your screen. The link is on the comment section. Just subscribe to the newsletter and you'll be getting alerts every time we have such sessions. Yeah. So next week on Thursday, the 26th, we have a virtual networking session. Yeah, that's going to be very, very exciting. We'll be talking to Wandia Gishuru. Wandia is a manufacturing and retail in fashion manufacturer entrepreneur. And we'll also be giving away a free goal setting tool to help you plan next year. And most importantly, will be speed networking, structured speed networking. So join us on Thursday. Yeah, just go to the Thrive page that's on your screen and on the comments to be able to do that. Another quick plug for an event that's coming up for agripreneurs. Yeah, if you're in agriculture, we have partnered with SME Talks and Dubai Consultancy, and we'll be holding a conversation around agri-trade opportunities for SMEs between Africa and UAE. Yeah, so if you're an entrepreneur and you're interested to trade and work, promote your products in the UAE, this is an event for you to attend. We'll just be breaking that down. How do you access that market and vice versa? Yeah, so if you're in agri-business, that's a session you can't afford to miss. And like I said before, do join the Thrive community, and that's where you'll be getting alerts for all these events that happen, community events, resources, and the link is on the comment section and also on your screen. Yeah, so we have come to the end of Africa Thrive Live. Thank you so much. I want to just thank Theo and and everyone from Bathu. Lulu, thank you so much for coordinating and helping us get a hold of Theo. Thank you so much. And you can follow their social media handles. They'll be on the comment section. So thank you for taking time to join us this evening. And on behalf of the African Management Institute, and until next time, we have been your hosts, Irene Okoye and Naomi Kirungu. Have a great, great evening. Bonsoir.
Good night.